According to Ann Applebaum, a journalist for The Atlantic, Marco Rubio's performance at the Munich Security Conference was less belligerent than J.D. Vance's. Just another reminder, though, that even mild-mannered Nazis are still Nazis, because Rubio's speech was deeply alarming to anybody who cares about the post-World War II Western liberal democratic order. I want to read some quotes from the speech given on February 14th to underscore just how alarmed we should all be by these latest developments, which make it clear that this is the end of the US-led order. The United States is no longer a country any of our allies can or should trust. And much of Rubio's rhetoric will make clear why. I mean, the most obvious reason, of course, is that tens of millions of people put back into power those most interested in destroying the post-World War II order, most interested in destroying NATO, most interested in undermining our alliances and our allies, those who do not believe in or understand statecraft and diplomacy, who believe that might makes right, who are doing so much to reverse all of the progress we have made in the last 80 years and to dismantle what has been, up until now, the greatest alliance perhaps in human history. But then there is, again, this rhetoric. Quote, to appease a climate cult, we have imposed energy policies on ourselves that are impoverishing our people, even as our competitors exploit oil and coal and natural gas and anything else, not just to power their economies, but to use as leverage against our own, unquote. So, in other words, those of us who believe the scientists who tell us that climate change is actually happening, that we are facing a climate catastrophe if we do not change the way we human beings do things, we belong in a cult. And it is that cult that is impoverishing our people. Now, this, a mere day, I think, after the Environmental Protection Agency of the United States made it clear that it will no longer do anything to protect our environment, that it will no longer do anything to stop or at least impede worsening climate change, that it will instead turn a blind eye and let corporations off the hook for continuing to pollute our air, our water, and our children. Rubio then said this, quote, and in a pursuit of a world without borders, we opened our doors to an unprecedented wave of mass migration that threatens the cohesion of our societies, the continuity of our culture, and the future of our people. We are part of one civilization, Western civilization. We are bound to one another by the deepest bonds that nations could share, forged by centuries of shared history, Christian faith, culture, heritage, language, ancestry, and the sacrifices our forefathers made together for the common civilization for which we have fallen heir. It was this continent that produced the genius of Mozart and Beethoven, of Dante and Shakespeare, of Michelangelo and Da Vinci, of the Beatles and the Rolling Stones. They testify not just to the greatness of our past or to a faith in God that inspires these marvels. They foreshadow the wonders that await us in our future, but only if we are unapologetic in our heritage and proud of this common inheritance, we can together begin to work of envisioning and shaping our economic and our political future, unquote. First of all, blaming immigrants for our difficulties is quite something, considering part of the reason mass migration is becoming an increasing problem is because of climate change. So the longer we wait to do something about that coming catastrophe, the worse the problem with mass migration is going to get. Also, the white supremacy is strong in this one. All of his exemplars of Western culture are white guys in Western Europe. Their inspiration is a Christian one. The suggestion that our heritage, our shared heritage, is only of white Christianity is so offensive. It's a little hard to believe that it's coming out of the mouth of a man whose parents were immigrants. But then again, the Trump regime and those who comprise it are nothing if not the worst kind of hypocrites. Speaking of which, shortly after his speech, Rubio flew to Budapest, where he assured authoritarian leader of Hungary, Viktor Orban, that Donald is, quote, deeply committed to his success, unquote. Yes, Donald, wannabe dictator himself, is deeply committed to the success of a man who rigs elections in his favor and stacks the judiciary and has destroyed almost entirely independent journalism. Just 6 short years ago, though, Rubio wrote a letter to Donald in which he denounced Orban's democratic erosion in Hungary. What could possibly have happened in those 6 short years to turn Rubio into a cheerleader for the kind of autocratic overreach he now champions? Well, I think it's pretty obvious. Although temperamentally very different from J.D. Vance, who is loud and violent and obviously bloodthirsty, Marco Rubio is just as much of a fascist. Even weak men can embrace the most vicious ideologies if it feeds their pathetic, grasping need for proximity to power. How far have we fallen, indeed? Let's dive in. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this evening's episode of Mary Trump Live. It is great to have you here. It is great to be here with you. It is Tuesday. And according to the Associated Press, the Justice Department has issued new subpoenas in a Florida-based investigation involving Donald's perceived political adversaries and the government's response to Russian interference in the 2016 election. An initial round of subpoenas in November sought documents tied to a U.S. intelligence community assessment on Russian election interference, which was real, and focused on records from around its release in January 2017. The latest subpoenas broaden that scope, seeking records from any years since the assessment was published. The Justice Department declined to comment. Lawyers for the former CIA Director John Brennan, who helped oversee the assessment and was called, quote unquote, crooked as hell by Donald, say he has been told he is a target, but has not been given any legally justifiable basis for the investigation. Because why on earth would the Department of Justice need a legal basis for anything they do, especially when it's all in service to Donald and his retribution tour? The intelligence assessment released in the final days of the Obama administration concluded that Russia developed a clear preference for Donald in 2016 and that Vladimir Putin ordered an influence campaign aimed at undermining confidence in democracy and harming Hillary Clinton's chances of victory. Well done, Vladimir, it worked. There's no doubt, literally no doubt, that this happened, just as there is no doubt that many in the upper echelons of Donald's 2016 presidential campaign actively sought out contact with Russians, people like Jared Kushner and his two useless sons. Not Jared's two useless sons, Donald's two useless sons. So, what's the problem? Well, the problem is that Donald doesn't like to be called the loser that he is. He knows that he can only win by cheating, but to have that pointed out so starkly wounds him, narcissistically speaking. So, of course, he must lash out. So, instead of looking into further what really happened in 2016, with an election the results of which I will never accept, he's going after the people who put together the assessment based on the actual record that Russia did indeed want Donald to become president of the United States. Republican lawmakers today pushed back at a Senate Judiciary Subcommittee hearing, accusing investigators of using overly invasive tactics in the probe into Donald's attempt to overturn the 2020 election. Their focus was on how prosecutors obtained phone records from sitting members of Congress. Telecommunications companies told lawmakers they were required by law to comply with subpoenas and court orders. Verizon's top consumer legal officer said the company turned over the records because it had no choice under a valid legal demand. The records obtained by special counsel Jack Smith's team showed the timing and duration of calls, but not what was said. According to Chairman Chuck Grassley, subpoenas covered 20 current or former Republican members of Congress. Democrats countered that the outrage was misplaced, saying the step was routine in criminal investigations and warranted given Donald's outreach to lawmakers on January 6, 2021, as rioters, at his behest, stormed the Capitol, endangering the lives of every single person in that building, including Republicans. At the end of last year, lawmakers added language to a government funding bill giving senators the ability to sue the Justice Department if their phone data were obtained without prior notice. While most Republican senators whose records were collected have said they do not plan to file claims, Lindsey Graham has made clear he intends to pursue legal action against the DOJ, former special counsel Jack Smith, and others, seeking significantly more than the $500,000 baseline set out in the law. Last week, on February 10th, South Carolina Senator Graham questioned telecom executives from Verizon, AT&T, and T-Mobile at a Senate Judiciary Subcommittee hearing about Smith's Arctic frost investigation. Here's a small look at some of that exchange.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the hearing. Number one, an observation. If the shoe were on the other foot, it'd be front page news all over the world that Republicans went after sitting Democratic senators' phone records. It'd be news all over the world that 490 30 Democratic organizations had 197 subpoenas issued by some right-wing prosecutor. And the cavalier attitude that some of you have, well, you know, nothing really bad here happened, I disagree. Fundamentally disagree. And if you ever had a doubt about where the media is at and where our friends on the other side are at, this should bring us all together. Apparently it will not. So I just want to let you know, I don't think I deserve what happened to me.
Oh, I do. Fucking traitor. These records were handed over because it was the law. These companies, don't get me wrong, I'm rarely in the corner of companies like them. They did the right thing in this instance because many Republicans in the House and in the Senate were implicated in some way in January 6th and Donald's attempt to incite an insurrection against our government. He had a lot of help. He was in touch with a lot of people on that day. We know because we saw it that Donald was guilty and Jack Smith indicted him and was ready to take him to trial. Too many things went wrong, which is always what happens. Merrick Garland ran after the wrong people. He started at the wrong end. of the pyramid. So to this day, we have sitting senators and sitting members of the House of Representatives who, to a degree we do not know, because the investigation was never completed, were involved in helping Donald try to incite an insurrection against his own government. And we know that those people were also involved in rehabilitating Donald to such a degree that January 6th, which should have united all of us, continues to divide us. And that traitor to the country is president of the United States, with people like Lindsey Graham saying outrageous things like what he just said in that clip. We talked yesterday about the partial government shutdown, largely driven by a standoff over immigration policy. Republicans have refused to agree to propose limits on ICE practices, including agents entering homes without judicial warrants, which seems like a pretty small ask as far as I'm concerned, and continuing to object to agents being required to wear identification and not wear masks. Now, Minnesota Representative Tom Emmer is pushing a new argument. He's a Republican, of course, defending the so-called SAVE Act, which will require proof of citizenship to vote. And he's attempting to draw a comparison somehow between these two things. He's suggesting that if Democrats support voter ID requirements, they shouldn't object to ICE agents remaining unidentified. Watch this from CBS News and try to make sense of it.
Now they want ICE law enforcement agents to show IDs, but they don't think people should show an ID to vote. There's some type of intellectual disconnect.
But Congressman, when they're asking for IDs, they don't mean identification in the way that we as ordinary Americans carry them. They mean similar to a badge number that a police officer would have. Not wearing a mask, because there's no way to know an officer who's arresting you who they are, just if they're showing their face. Our police officers on the streets don't wear masks.
Yeah, Vlad, you can interpret it that way for sure. But that isn't necessarily what they're asking for. If you listen closely, I don't know that they know exactly what they're asking for, because what has happened is Republicans and Democrats had an agreement, worked very hard together, passed a bipartisan Homeland Security funding bill out of the House. Then the tragedy occurred in Minneapolis, and now they want to argue about reforms that, frankly, are already in the bill, many of them.
Okay. Is it just me, or is every Republican that stupid? I mean, it's painful how deeply unintelligent and ignorant these people are. Truly. Because there's no comparison between voter ID laws and a basic requirement that law enforcement agents from whatever agency are easily identifiable. I don't understand why anybody thought it was a good idea to try to present those two things as that they are somehow related. On the one hand, we have ICE agents using the fact that they can't be identified to carry out egregious violence against human beings on American soil in the name of protecting the homeland, I guess. Completely escaping accountability. On the other hand, we have what is essentially going to be a poll tax, taking us back to the days of Jim Crow, when unreasonable burdens are placed upon members of the population Republicans don't want to allow to exercise the franchise. It is that simple. And Emmer, as deeply unintelligent as he may be, knows that. He's just not smart enough to make it make sense. Georgia Representative Buddy Carter went on Fox today to speak against the Constitution. Okay, well, he's a Republican, so that tracks. And claimed that we, quote, can't have warrants every time, unquote. Take a look.
Some of the demands that the Democrats have put forth, we're not going to be able to obtain that. We can't have a warrant every time.
Well, yes, we can. It is in the Constitution. Americans are protected against illegal search and seizure. And if you can't get a warrant, guess what? You don't have a right to break into somebody's home just because you want to and think you should be able to. Yes, again, how far we have fallen. Republicans now openly argue against the Constitution of the United States of America. They openly argue that Americans should have fewer rights today than they did when those amendments to the Constitution were written. We learned today that the Reverend Jesse L. Jackson, a longtime civil rights leader and a prominent figure in American politics throughout my life, has died at the age of 84. This was confirmed by his family this morning. Jackson was a protege of Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. and spent decades advocating for civil and human rights, economic opportunity, voting rights, and real liberalism and progressivism. He ran for president twice and helped lead efforts that reshaped national discourse on equality and justice. Jackson's work extended from grassroots organizing to international diplomacy, and he remained a visible, vital voice for marginalized communities throughout his life. I want to take a look at a short section of his speech from the 1984 Democratic National Convention, because another fact about Reverend Jackson he was a brilliant rhetorician, and the words he spoke in 1984 still ring true today.
America is not like a blanket, one piece of unbroken cloth, the same color, the same texture, the same size. America is more like a quilt, many patches, many pieces, many colors, many sizes, all woven and held together by a common thread. The white, the Hispanic, the black, the Arab, the Jew, the woman, the Native American, the small farmer, the business person, the environmentalist, the peace activist, the young, the old, the lesbian, the gay, and the disabled make up the American quilt. Even in our fractured state, all of us count and fit somewhere. We have proven that we can survive without each other, but we have not proven that we can win and make progress without each other. We must come together.
Yet another reminder of just how far we have fallen. Condolences to Reverend Jackson's wife, Jacqueline, and their children, and the many millions of people who loved and admired that man. So, thankfully, we've reached today's emotional support moment. So let's take a breath, and let's hang out with some bears. I love bears. I don't ever want to be within arm's reach of them, but they are amazing creatures. And today we get to look at a grizzly bear in his natural habitat, from which is the safest vantage point when you're talking about bears. The comfort of your home, which hopefully the bear does not have access to. Enjoy. I'm guessing that's pre-hibernation. It's adorable. Reminds me a little bit of Cap, because Cap 2 will cut you. Oh, that was very sweet. But again, don't try that at home. All right. That does it for us tonight. Thank you, everybody who's watching on YouTube, streaming on Twitter, and at our Substack, The Good in Us. Everybody watching, sorry, not watching. That would be weird. Listening to the podcast, which is probably the best way to consume a podcast auditorily. Thank you to all of our new members, everybody gifting memberships, all of our super stickers, everybody giving us donations. We appreciate you more and more every day. Trust me. To our incredible moderators for doing the hard work day in, day out to keep this community a place we all want to be. If you want to support us, the easiest way to do that, if you haven't already, is subscribe to our channel. And after you've done that, click on the bell icon and select all, so you will be alerted every time, hopefully, new videos drop, because in addition to Mary Trump Live, Monday through Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern, we also have pre-recorded videos dropping every day, 7 days a week. Another quite easy way to support us is to watch those videos, like them, share them, comment on them. And there are a whole bunch of other ways too. I would love it if you all went over to my Substack, The Good in Us. It is a place where we do interviews. I write articles, and it is another phenomenal community. I think it would be amazing to have those communities be one circle of a Venn diagram. That'd be amazing. Also, you can subscribe over on Patreon. We have lots of bonus content over there. We have a lot of just take a picture of the QR code up in the corner, and that'll take you right there. And there's so much going on. I don't know. Follow us on social media. And of course, you can always, as I mentioned, become a subscriber, a paid subscriber on YouTube, because we also have bonus content here. And there's merch. There's merch if you like things with actual, what am I trying to say? That are actually tactile and three-dimensional. We have merch, like cool t-shirts, long sleeve, short sleeve. We've got sweatshirts, hoodies, tote bags, and mugs. So go to shop.marytrump.com or click on the QR code or something. I don't know. There's so many ways to get there. Just Google us. It's the easiest thing to do. All right. Thank you guys so much. I will be back tomorrow night at 6 p.m. Eastern. Hopefully, it won't be quite as long a day as the last two have been, but it's America in 2026. So who am I kidding? Thank you again so much for being here. I will see you soon. In the meantime, please stay safe and be kind.